I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who'd kiss someone else's fiancé just to watch the world burn, but here we are. Let me tell you how Zephyr Kane, a bottle service girl who moonlights as a maid for the most insufferable woman in Manhattan, ended up trapped between two women I absolutely should not want. It started 3 months ago when I took this ridiculous housekeeping gig. Not because I needed the money, the club pays me more than enough to keep my wardrobe stocked with the kind of dresses that make heads turn and tips overflow. Between the private booths and the high rollers who think $1,000 tip will get them my number, I was doing just fine. I took the maid job because my therapist, Dr. Chin, said I needed structure during my off hours. Something about healthy routines and not spending every waking moment in strobe lights and bass drops. She had this concerned look when she said it, like my life was a house party that needed adult supervision. So when my friend Jade mentioned her cousin needed help around her penthouse, I figured why not. How hard could dusting be? I'd scrubbed worse things off worse surfaces in club bathrooms at 4 in the morning. A little domestic work seemed almost quaint. Enter Severin Cross. Imagine if a storm cloud learned to wear Armani and developed a personality disorder. No, scratch that. Imagine if perfectionism itself became sentient, bought a penthouse overlooking Central Park, and decided that nothing in the entire world would ever meet its standards. That was Severin. The woman complained about everything. And I mean everything. The first day, I folded her towels into neat rectangles because that's what normal humans do with towels. She took one look at the linen closet and said, "Too crisp. They look like they're preparing for military inspection. I prefer a softer fold." So the next day, I folded them softer. She walked by, paused, and said, "Now they look sloppy. Like you've given up on life." I stood there in my uniform, a black dress that hugged every curve I'd been blessed with, and wondered if it was too late to tell Dr. Chin that structure was overrated. But I stayed. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was the way Severin's jaw tightened when she was trying not to look at me. Maybe it was the paycheck that cleared like clockwork every Friday. Whatever it was, I showed up every morning at 9 and cleaned a penthouse that was already immaculate. Severin had rules. So many rules. No shoes past the entryway. No humming while working. No rearranging her books even though her organization system appeared to be organized chaos designed by a beautiful lunatic. I'd find romance novels mixed in with her business texts, cookbooks she clearly never used wedged between art history volumes. Once, I found a dog-eared copy of a poetry collection hidden behind her economics books, like she was ashamed of having feelings. The back door thing, though, that's what really got me. Severin's penthouse had 2 entrances. The main one, all marble and understated elegance, opened into a foyer with this chandelier that probably cost more than my car. The back entrance was through the service hallway, plain and utilitarian, the kind of space meant for staff and deliveries. Normal people used the front door. Severin insisted on using the back. Every single day. I asked her about it once, about 3 weeks in. She was standing in the kitchen reviewing some contracts, her reading glasses perched on her nose in a way that made her look softer than usual. Almost approachable. "Why do you use the back entrance?" I was wiping down the marble countertops, the ones that never actually got dirty because the woman barely cooked. She didn't look up from her papers. "Because nobody else uses it." "Right, but it's your home. You could use the front door." "I prefer not to share." Still not looking at me. "Share what?" "A door." Finally, she glanced up, and her eyes were this intense shade of gray that reminded me of winter mornings. "I don't like to share anything, Zephyr. Spaces, air, doorways. If other people use something, I'd rather find an alternative." She went back to her contracts like she hadn't just revealed something deeply sad about herself. I watched her elegant frame, all sharp shoulders and perfect posture, and thought about how lonely it must be to wall yourself off from everything, including the front of your own home. How exhausting it must be to avoid overlap with the rest of humanity. But Severin didn't want my pity. She wanted her countertops cleaned to an impossible standard, so I cleaned them and kept my psychological analyses to myself. The complaints continued. I arranged her flowers too symmetrically, then too randomly. I made her bed with hospital corners sharp enough to perform surgery on. She said it looked uncomfortable. I left it softer. She said it looked like I'd given up halfway through. Once, she walked into the living room while I was vacuuming and told me I was doing it in the wrong direction. There's a wrong direction for vacuuming? I asked, genuinely baffled. You're going against the grain of the carpet. The carpet has a grain? Everything has a grain, Zephyr. I looked down at my uniform, at the way it hugged my hips and showed off my legs, and wondered if I had a grain she was secretly analyzing too. Because here's the thing I'd started noticing. Severin complained the most when I was bent over cleaning something. She'd appear in doorways like a beautiful, judgmental ghost, and I'd catch her staring before she'd snap at me about streaks on windows that didn't exist. Her eyes would drop to my curves, linger just a fraction too long, and then she'd overcorrect with some criticism about baseboards or the angle of throw pillows. The woman was wound so tight I could practically hear her unraveling every time I walked past her, smelling like the vanilla perfume she claimed was too distracting. 2 months into this bizarre arrangement, I'd developed a theory. Severin Cross was attracted to me, and she hated herself for it, which made my job infinitely more entertaining. I started testing the theory. I'd wear my uniform just a little tighter. I'd bend over just a little more deliberately when she was in the room. I'd make eye contact when she was mid-criticism and watch her lose her train of thought. It was petty, sure, but when someone pays you to clean an already clean penthouse and complains about the way you breathe while doing it, you take your entertainment where you can find it. Then I met Kalista, and everything got complicated. It was a Thursday night at Velvet, the club where I worked weekends and some weeknights when they needed extra coverage for private events. I was working the VIP section in this emerald dress that Jade had talked me into buying. It was ridiculous, all silk and strategic cutouts, the kind of dress that required confidence and double-sided tape. But it fit like a second skin, and the tips were always better when I wore it. The VIP section was packed with the usual crowd. Investment bankers trying to impress each other, tech bros celebrating some acquisition, a few celebrities trying to look bored in the corner. I was delivering a bottle of champagne to table 7 when I saw her. She sat alone in the corner booth, and that was the first unusual thing. Nobody sat alone in VIP. It defeated the purpose. The second unusual thing was that she wasn't on her phone. She was just sitting there, watching the room with these warm brown eyes that seemed to actually see things instead of just looking at them. When those eyes landed on me, I felt it like a physical touch. She wasn't leering like most of the clientele. She wasn't doing that thing where guys pretend to look at your face while obviously staring at your chest. She was appreciating. There's a difference. Her gaze traveled over me like I was art in a gallery, something worth taking time with, worth understanding. I brought her champagne even though she hadn't ordered it. Compliments of the house, I lied. She smiled, and it transformed her whole face. That's kind of you, but I didn't order anything. I know. You just looked like you could use some bubbles. I set the glass down, and our fingers brushed. The contact lasted maybe 2 seconds, but electricity shot up my arm and settled somewhere in my chest. Thank you, she said, and she actually meant it. Not the automatic thank you people give service workers, but genuine gratitude. I'm Kalista. Zephyr. I should have walked away. I had other tables, other customers flagging me down. But I stood there, caught in her orbit. That's a beautiful name. Like the wind. My mother was a hippie with delusions of poetry. It was my standard line, usually got a polite laugh. Kalista's laugh was different. Genuine, warm, the kind that made you want to keep talking just to hear it again. Well, she succeeded. It suits you. We talked for maybe 5 minutes. She told me she worked at an art gallery in Chelsea. I told her about my dual life as a maid and bottle service girl, which made her laugh again. The whole time, her eyes never left mine, and I felt seen in a way that had nothing to do with my dress or my body, and everything to do with something deeper. When I finally pulled myself away to check on other tables, I felt her gaze following me. Not creepy. Appreciative. Warm. Like sunshine. I didn't know she was Severin's fiancé until she showed up at the penthouse 2 weeks later. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I was in the living room arranging fresh peonies in a vase, trying to find the balance between too symmetrical and too random that might actually satisfy Severin for once. I heard the front door open, which was already unusual because Severin never used the front door. Then I heard voices. Severin's crisp, professional tone and another voice, softer, saying something about traffic on the bridge. I turned around with the vase in my hands and nearly dropped it. Kalista stood in the entryway, Severin's hand possessive on the small of her back, looking exactly as beautiful as she had in the club, but somehow even more radiant in the afternoon light. She wore simple jeans and a cream sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. Our eyes met, and I watched recognition flare in hers. "Zephyr," Severin said, somehow making my name sound like a critique. "This is my fiancée, Kalista Monroe." "Kalista, this is Zephyr Kane, my housekeeper." Housekeeper. Not maid, which is what the job was, but housekeeper, like she was trying to add professional distance to the introduction. Kalista's smile was warm but controlled. "It's lovely to meet you, Zephyr." She was playing it cool, pretending we'd never met. I followed her lead. "Nice to meet you too, Ms. Monroe. Please call me Kalista." Her eyes held mine for a beat too long, and I saw something flicker there. Recognition, yes, but also interest. The same appreciation I'd seen in the club, but now with an edge of something forbidden. Severin's hand tightened on Kalista's back. "Zephyr, could you bring us some tea?" "The jasmine blend." I nodded and escaped to the kitchen, my heart pounding. This gentle, respectful woman who'd looked at me like I mattered was engaged to my nightmare boss. The universe had a sick sense of humor. I made the tea on autopilot, trying to process. Kalista was engaged. To Severin. To the woman who complained about the direction, I vacuumed and used the back door to avoid sharing space with humanity. What did someone like Kalista see in someone like Severin? When I brought the tea out, they were sitting on the sofa, Severin's arm around Kalista's shoulders. They looked good together, I had to admit. Severin all sharp edges and designer suits, Kalista all softness and warmth. Opposites that somehow made sense. Except for the way Kalista's eyes kept finding mine. And the way Severin noticed. After that day, Kalista became a regular presence at the penthouse. She'd visit 2 or 3 times a week, usually in the afternoons when Severin was between meetings. And every single time, the air got thicker. She'd compliment the way I'd arranged the flowers. She'd ask about my day with genuine interest while Severin barked orders from another room. She'd help me carry things even though I insisted it wasn't necessary, and our hands would brush, and that electricity from the club would crackle between us. The flirtation in those eyes hadn't dimmed. If anything, it had intensified. Once I was dusting the bookshelves in the library, this room Severin barely used, but insisted be kept perfect. Kalista appeared in the doorway. "Need any help?" she asked. "I'm good, thanks." I reached for a high shelf, and my dress rode up slightly. I heard her breath catch. When I glanced back, she was staring at my legs with an expression that made heat pool in my stomach. "You have a beautiful home," I said, just to break the tension. "It's Severin's home." "I just visit." "You don't live together?" "Not yet. We're waiting until after the wedding." She moved closer, close enough that I could smell her jasmine perfume. "Severin likes her space. Her rules. Her order." "I've noticed." "Does she?" Kalista paused, choosing words carefully. "Does she give you a hard time?" I laughed. "That's one way to put it." Last week she told me I was folding her napkins with too much enthusiasm. Kalista smiled. "That sounds like her. She's intense about everything. Is that what attracted you to her?" I don't know why I asked. It wasn't my business. But Kalista considered the question seriously. "Partly. She's brilliant, you know. When she focuses on something, it's like watching a force of nature. And underneath all that control, there's something vulnerable she tries to hide." Her eyes met mine. "I'm drawn to complicated women." The way she said it made it clear she wasn't just talking about Severin. I should have shut it down right there. Should have made an excuse and left the room. Instead, I said, "Complicated is just another word for exhausting." "Maybe. But it's never boring." She was so close now I could see gold flecks in her brown eyes. "You must know what I mean. You work at that club, you work here. You're not someone who chooses boring." "No, I admit it. I'm really not." We stood there, surrounded by books neither of us were reading, with Severin's voice drifting from somewhere else in the penthouse, talking on a conference call about quarterly projections. The moment stretched, pulled taut with possibility. Then Kalista stepped back. I should let you work. But she didn't stop looking at me like that. And I didn't stop noticing. Meanwhile, Severin got worse. The criticism became more frequent, more pointed. She started finding fault with things she'd praised the day before. I'd arrange her desk exactly how she'd requested on Monday, and by Tuesday she'd tell me I'd done it all wrong. She'd appear in doorways when I was bent over cleaning, and I'd catch her staring before she'd snap at me about streaks on windows that didn't exist. Her eyes would linger on the curve of my hips, the line of my neck, the way my uniform dress hugged my body, and then she'd overcorrect with some absurd criticism. Once I was cleaning the master bathroom, scrubbing the already pristine marble when she walked in. I was on my knees, reaching into the corner of the shower, and when I looked up, she was frozen in the doorway, staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. That tile doesn't need cleaning, she said, her voice rougher than usual. You told me yesterday it needed cleaning. Well, today I'm telling you it doesn't. I sat back on my heels, looking up at her. Make up your mind, Severin. Something flashed in her eyes. Anger maybe, or frustration, or something else entirely. Don't take that tone with me. What tone? I'm just trying to do my job the way you want it done, but you keep changing what you want. Maybe if you paid more attention. I pay plenty of attention. I stood up, and in the small bathroom, we were suddenly very close. I pay attention to everything you say. Every little detail. Every contradictory instruction. I pay so much attention I could probably predict your next complaint before you make it. Her jaw clenched. You're insubordinate. You're impossible. We stood there, nearly toe-to-toe, both breathing hard. Her eyes dropped to my mouth, just for a second, and I saw it. The want. The frustration of wanting something she thought she shouldn't have. Then she turned and walked out, and I heard her back door close a minute later. That's when I knew for certain. Severin Cross was attracted to me, and she hated herself for it. And that's when I started planning my revenge. Look, I'm not proud of it. But after 3 months of contradictory orders and nitpicking and catching her staring at me like I was a problem she needed to solve, I was done. Severin wanted to be impossible? Fine. I'd show her impossible. Plus, there was the Kalista factor. This sweet, genuine woman was engaged to someone who didn't seem to appreciate her. Someone who was so busy building walls and using back doors and avoiding sharing space that she probably didn't see how lucky she was. Kalista deserved better. And I deserved to wipe that smug control off Severin's face. So I started planning. Nothing violent, nothing destructive. Just something that would shake Severin's perfect, controlled world and show her that some things couldn't be managed with rules and rigid standards. I was going to kiss her fiancé. And I was going to make sure Severin caught us. The plan came together over the course of a week. I knew Kalista would be visiting that Friday evening. She'd mentioned it during her last visit, something about wanting to see Severin before a weekend work trip. I knew Severin had a conference call scheduled with her Tokyo office at 7 because she'd told me to make sure the study was immaculate by then. The call always lasted exactly 45 minutes. Severin ran her life like a military operation, which meant her schedule was predictable. All I had to do was create a moment with Kalista, let it build, and make sure the timing aligned perfectly with Severin finishing her call. Friday arrived, and I was nervous in a way I hadn't expected. This wasn't just petty revenge anymore. There was a part of me, a part one didn't want to examine too closely, that genuinely wanted to kiss Kalista. Wanted to know if that electricity between us would translate into something real. I wore my uniform a little tighter than usual. Left an extra button undone. Did my makeup a bit more dramatic than was probably appropriate for housekeeping. When I looked in the mirror before leaving my apartment, I barely recognized myself. I looked like someone about to make a very bad decision. Perfect. I arrived at the penthouse at 5, earlier than necessary, but I wanted to make sure everything was set. I cleaned spaces that were already clean, arranged things that didn't need arranging, all while watching the clock. Severin was in her study, preparing for her call. She'd barely acknowledged me when I arrived, Just a curt nod before disappearing behind her closed door. I caught a glimpse of her through the gap, all focused intensity as she reviewed documents. For a moment, I almost felt bad about what I was planning. Almost. Kalista arrived at 6:30. I heard the front door, not the back, which meant Severin must have given her a key. The thought made something twist in my chest. Severin wouldn't share a doorway with staff, but she'd share a key with Kalista. That meant something. I was in the kitchen, pretending to organize the wine fridge, when Kalista found me. "Zephyr," she said, and her smile was warm and genuine and made me feel like the worst person in the world for what I was about to do. "I didn't know you'd still be here." "Just finishing up some things." "Severin's on her call." "Right, the Tokyo office." "That'll be a while." She leaned against the counter, casual and comfortable in dark jeans and a soft blue sweater that made her eyes look even warmer. "Want some company?" This was it. The moment I'd been planning for. I should have felt triumphant, excited. Instead, I felt nervous and guilty and exhilarated all at once. "Sure," I said. I was just about to have some wine. "Want a glass?" "I'd love one." I poured us both wine from a bottle I knew Severin wouldn't miss. Something red and expensive that probably cost more than my rent. We moved to the sitting room, this cozy space with a view of the city lights that Severin rarely used because it was too informal for guests. We sat on the sofa, not quite touching, but close enough that I could feel her warmth. We talked, and the conversation flowed like water finding its path. She told me about an exhibition she was curating at the gallery, some emerging artist who worked in mixed media. I told her about a drunk tech bro at the club who'd tried to impress me by reciting pi to 50 decimal places. "Did it work?" she asked, eyes sparkling with amusement. "Absolutely not. I don't even know what pi is past 3.14. She laughed, that genuine, warm sound that made my chest feel tight. "You're so different from Severin." "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" It's as she paused, taking a sip of wine. "It's a noticeable thing. Severin is all structure and control. You're all curves and spontaneity." The way she said curves made heat bloom in my stomach. "Structure and control sounds exhausting," I said. "It can be. But it's also safe, you know? With Severin, I always know where I stand. What's expected? There are no surprises." "No surprises" sounds boring. "Maybe." She turned to face me more fully, and her knee brushed against mine. Neither of us moved away. But boring is comfortable. Boring doesn't hurt you. Boring doesn't make you feel alive either. Her eyes searched mine. "No, it doesn't." The moment stretched between us, heavy with possibility. I could hear Severin's muffled voice from the study, professional and controlled. I could hear the city sounds filtering through the windows. I could hear my own heartbeat. I leaned closer. Close enough to smell her jasmine perfume. Close enough to see her pupils dilate. "I think," I said, my voice low, "that your fiancé doesn't deserve you." Kalista's breath caught. "Zephyr." I kissed her. Not a peck. Not tentative or questioning. A real kiss, the kind that tastes like rebellion and feels like falling. I cupped her face with one hand, threaded my fingers through her hair with the other, and kissed her like I'd been thinking about it for weeks. Because I had been. For a second, she froze. Then she melted into it, her hand coming up to cup my face, her lips soft and warm and eager against mine. She made this small sound of surprise or pleasure or both, and it went straight through me like lightning. She tasted like wine and something sweeter. Her fingers tangled in my hair, and she pulled me closer, deepening the kiss. All thoughts of revenge, of Severin, of consequences evaporated. There was just this, just Kalista's mouth on mine and her hands on me, and the feeling of something clicking into place. I don't know how long we kissed. Could have been seconds, could have been minutes. Time did that weird thing where it stretches and compresses simultaneously. All I knew was that I didn't want to stop. That's when I heard the door open. I didn't pull away immediately. This was the plan, after all. Let Severin see it. Let her absorb the image of her fiancé's fingers tangled in my hair, my hand on Kalista's waist, our lips locked in something that couldn't be dismissed as accidental or innocent. When I finally broke the kiss and turned to face the music, Kalista's lipstick was smeared, Her eyes were wide, and she looked beautifully wrecked. Severin stood in the doorway of the sitting room in her perfectly tailored suit, her hair immaculate, her expression unreadable. I expected fury. Screaming. Maybe expensive objects being thrown. At minimum, I expected her to fire me on the spot, maybe threaten a lawsuit, definitely demand I leave immediately and never come back. Instead, Severin just stood there. Her eyes moved from Kalista to me, taking in the scene with that analytical gaze she usually reserved for quarterly reports. I watched her jaw tighten, watched something flash in those gray eyes, pain maybe, or anger, or something I couldn't name. Then she smiled. Not a smirk. Not an angry grimace. A real, genuine smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, but somehow looked almost relieved. Like she'd been waiting for this, like it confirmed something she'd suspected. Well, she said, her voice calm and controlled. That's interesting. Then she turned and walked away. I heard her footsteps, measured and even, walking toward her bedroom. Heard the door close with a soft click. Kalista and I sat there in stunned silence. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. My lips still tingled from the kiss. Kalista's hand was still on my face, frozen like she'd forgotten it was there. What just happened? Kalista whispered. I have no idea. This wasn't the plan. Severin was supposed to fire me, to rage, to do something that would confirm she was the villain I'd decided she was. Something that would make the kiss feel justified, like righteous revenge instead of the messy, complicated thing it actually was. Instead, she'd just smiled and left me with her fiancé's lipstick on my mouth and absolutely no idea what happened next. Kalista pulled away, reality crashing back in. Oh my god. Oh my god, Zephyr, what did we just do? We kissed, I said, unhelpfully. We kissed. I kissed you. Severin saw us. She stood up, pacing. She just smiled. Why did she smile? Severin doesn't smile. Severin gets angry or disappointed or critical, but she doesn't just smile. I had no answers. I was too busy trying to figure out what Severin's reaction meant. That smile haunted me. It was the smile of someone who'd just had a theory confirmed. The smile of someone who'd been waiting for the other shoe to drop. The smile of someone who already knew. I should go, Kalista said, but she wasn't moving. She was staring at me like she was trying to memorize my face. I should go talk to her. But I don't. I don't know what to say. Tell her the truth? What truth? That I've been attracted to our housekeeper since the first night I saw her at a club? That I've been fantasizing about this for weeks? That kissing you felt more real than anything has in months. Her voice broke slightly. I love Severin. I do. But that kiss. I know. You planned this, didn't you? It wasn't an accusation, just a realization. You knew she'd see us. You wanted her to. I could have lied. Should have lied. But I was tired of games. Yes. Why? Because she's been driving me crazy for 3 months. Because she looks at me like I'm a problem she needs to solve and then criticizes the way I breathe. Because she doesn't deserve someone like you when she's too busy building walls to appreciate what she has. Kalista was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You're wrong about one thing. Severin does appreciate me. She just doesn't know how to show it. She's been hurt before, so she controls everything to avoid getting hurt again. It's not healthy, but it's how she survives. That's not an excuse for treating people like." I know. I'm not excusing it. I'm just explaining it. She finally moved toward the door. I need to go talk to her. This is a mess. Kalista, wait. She turned back, and the look in her eyes made my breath catch. I meant what you said, she whispered. About her not deserving me. But not because she's a bad person. Because I think maybe I don't love her the way I should. And I think I might, she trailed off, shaking her head. I need to go. She left, and I sat alone in the sitting room with 2 wine glasses and the ghost of her kiss on my lips, wondering what the hell I'd just unleashed. I left shortly after, slipping out through the service entrance that Severin never used. The irony wasn't lost on me. I drove home in a daze, my mind spinning with Severin's smile and Kalista's kiss, and the feeling that I'd just set something in motion that I couldn't control. My phone buzzed when I was halfway home. A text from an unknown number that turned out to be Kalista. I got your number from the employee file. I hope that's okay. We need to talk. Another buzz before I could respond. I love you. I nearly drove into a parked car. Pulled over on a side street, hands shaking, staring at those 3 words on my screen like they were a foreign language. I love you. Not, I think I might love you, or I'm confused, or this is complicated. Just a simple, devastating declaration. Another text, I fell for you the first night at the club. Today just made me fall harder. I need to see you again. I need to kiss you again, properly this time, without an audience. Without guilt. I need to know if this is real. My fingers were shaking when I typed back, what about Severin? The response came quickly. I talked to her. She said we should figure out what we want. All of us. I don't know what that means, but right now all I know is that I want to see you. When? I should have said no. Should have told her to work things out with her fiancé, that I was just the housekeeper, that this was a mistake fueled by wine and rebellion and 3 months of sexual tension. Instead, I wrote, when? Tomorrow. 8 p.m. There's a wine bar on 9th, Amelie's. Please say yes. I sat in my car on that dark side street and thought about consequences. About the job I'd probably just lost. About the woman who just told me she loved me despite being engaged to someone else. About Severin's smile and what it might mean. Then I wrote, yes. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything. The kiss, Severin's reaction, Kalista's declaration. I analyzed it from every angle, trying to make sense of it. Around midnight, I gave up and opened a bottle of wine, the cheap kind from my own fridge that probably cost less than a single glass of what I'd served Kalista earlier. I thought about texting Jade, but what would I even say? Hey, remember that maid job you set me up with? Well, I kissed my boss's fiancée despite her, and now the fiancée says she loves me, and the boss just smiled about the whole thing. Thoughts? Yeah, that wasn't a conversation for text. Around 1 in the morning, I started second-guessing everything. Maybe Kalista's declaration was just adrenaline. Maybe in the morning she'd wake up and realize she'd made a mistake. Maybe Severin's smile was just shock, and by tomorrow she'd be calling lawyers. Around 2, I started thinking about Severin herself. About the vulnerability Kalista had mentioned. About how Severin built walls and used back doors and created rules to keep the world at a distance. About how attraction can look like cruelty when you're trying to deny it. Around 3, I gave up on sleep entirely and made tea. That's when I heard my apartment door unlock. I froze, cup halfway to my lips. Only 2 people had keys to my place. My landlord and Severin stumbled into my living room, and I could smell the whiskey before I saw the bottle in her hand. She was still in her business suit from earlier, but her jacket was gone and her shirt was unbuttoned at the top. Her hair, usually immaculate, was disheveled. Her eyes were wild in a way I'd never seen. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Me in my pajamas, tiny shorts and a tank top, standing in my tiny kitchen with my cheap tea. Her in designer clothes, drunk and disheveled, looking completely out of place in my modest apartment. Severin? What are you doing here? She laughed, and it sounded broken. I can't. I tried so hard, Zephyr. You're drunk. Let me call you a car. I'm drunk, she agreed, but that doesn't make it less true. I tried so hard to make it stop. The wanting. The needing. I thought if I was harsh enough, if I found enough fault, if I kept enough distance, it would go away. What would go away? She took a step closer, swaying slightly. You. This. The way I can't stop thinking about you. The way every criticism I give is just an excuse to look at you longer. The way I use the back door because if I use the front I might run into you in the hallway, and I don't trust myself not to. She cut herself off, taking a drink from the bottle. Severin, you need to sit down. I'm in love with you. The words fell out of her mouth like stones, heavy and unavoidable. I've been in love with you since the first day you walked into my home in that uniform and told me my feng shui was off. I was harsh because I thought I could make it stop. I thought if I pushed you away, if I made you hate me, I could make these feelings go away. My mouth went dry. Severin, you're not thinking clearly. I've never thought more clearly. She moved closer, and I could see tears in her eyes. Real tears from Severin Cross, who I'd never seen show even a hint of emotion. I saw you kiss her today, and instead of being angry, I was jealous. Of both of you. Because I wanted to be her, feeling your hands on her. And I wanted to be you, tasting her lips. And I can't have this. I can't want this. Why not? Because I love Kalista too. It burst out of her like a confession she'd been holding back for too long. I love her. She's safe and steady, and she doesn't make me feel like I'm losing control. But you, God, you make me feel like I'm on fire. Like everything I've built could burn down and I wouldn't care as long as I could touch you. She was right in front of me now, close enough that I could see the tears tracking down her face, could smell the whiskey on her breath mixed with her expensive perfume. I can't do this, she whispered. I can't love two people. I can't want both of you. It's not fair. It's not right. I'm supposed to choose. I'm supposed to know. But I saw you two together and all I could think was that you looked right together. And all I wanted was to be part of it. Then she kissed me. If you're ready to see how this impossibly complicated love triangle unfolds and what happens when three women realize they might all want each other, hit that like button because this story is about to get even messier. Not like Kalista's soft, exploratory kiss. This was desperate and messy and tasted like whiskey and tears and 3 months of denied wanting. Her hands cupped my face almost roughly, and she kissed me like she was trying to prove something or punish herself or both. I should have pushed her away. She was drunk, engaged, my boss. This was every kind of wrong. But I kissed her back. Because somewhere in the past 3 months of criticism and tension and catching her staring, I'd developed feelings for her too. Not the same feelings I had for Kalista, which were warm and safe and easy. These were complicated and intense and probably unhealthy, but they were real. When she finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. I'm sorry, she said. I shouldn't have. I'm drunk and I'm a mess and I should go. Severin. No. I should go. Pretend this didn't happen. Pretend I didn't just. She turned to leave, stumbling slightly. You're not driving like this. I grabbed her arm. Stay. Sleep on the couch. Sober up. Then we can. I don't know, figure this out. There's nothing to figure out. I just made everything worse. You're probably right. But you're still not driving. I got her settled on my couch, brought her water and aspirin, found a blanket. She looked small and vulnerable, nothing like the controlled, critical woman who'd made my life difficult for 3 months. This was Severin without her armor, and it was devastating. Why did you smile? I asked. When you saw us. You just smiled and left. She was quiet for so long I thought she'd fallen asleep. Then, because I'd been waiting for it. I knew Kalista was attracted to you. I could see it. And I knew you were attracted to her. The way you two looked at each other, it was obvious. I thought if I let it happen, if I saw you two together, it would kill what I was feeling. Proof that I couldn't have you both, so I should just let you have each other. Did it work? No, she closed her eyes. It just made me want you both more. I left her on the couch and went to my bedroom, but I didn't sleep. I lay there thinking about her confession, about Kalista's text, about the date tomorrow at 8. About how a plan for petty revenge had turned into the most complicated situation of my life. The next morning, Severin was gone. She'd left a note on my coffee table. Thank you for not letting me drive. I'm sorry for everything. Take the day off. We'll talk Monday. So professional. So controlled. Like she hadn't fallen apart in my living room and kissed me like the world was ending. I spent the day in a fog. Tried to watch TV but couldn't focus. Tried to clean my apartment but gave up after 10 minutes. Tried to talk myself out of meeting Kalista that night and failed completely. By 7 p.m., I was pulling out dresses from my closet, trying to figure out what you wear to a date with your boss's fiancé the day after your boss confessed she loved you too. Fashion advice columns didn't cover this scenario. I settled on a black dress, simpler than my club outfits, but still flattering. Did my makeup carefully, this smoky eye situation that made my green eyes pop. Tried to ignore the voice in my head that sounded suspiciously like Dr. Chen asking what the hell I thought I was doing. I was putting on lipstick when my phone buzzed. 7:15. A text from Severin. My heart stopped. I picked up the phone with shaking hands and read, I meant every word I said last night. I love you. I know this is impossible and unfair, and I have no right to ask anything of you. I know you're seeing Kalista tonight at 8. But I need to see you too. Please. I'm at the penthouse. I understand if you choose her. But please give me a chance to talk to you sober, to explain properly. 8 p.m. I stared at the message. Read it 3 times. 4 times. Severin wanted to see me at 8. Kalista wanted to see me at 8. Same time. Different places. Both wanting me. Both making my heart race in completely different ways. Another buzz. Kalista this time. Can't wait to see you tonight. I've been thinking about you all day. About that kiss. About what it means. I know this is complicated, but I've never been more sure of anything. See you at 8. XX. I sat down on my bed, still in my underwear, phone in one hand, makeup wipe in the other. My reflection in the mirror looked terrified and confused and maybe a little excited, which probably said something about my mental state that Dr. Chin would have a field day with. 2 women. Same time. Both wanting me. Both making me feel things I wasn't ready to name. Kalista was soft and gentle, all warmth and steady affection. She looked at me like I was art worth studying, worth understanding. Being with her felt like coming home to something I didn't know I'd been missing. She was safety and sweetness and the promise of something uncomplicated. Except it wasn't uncomplicated anymore, was it? She was still engaged to Severin. Still had a life and a relationship and commitments that included the other woman who'd just asked to see me. And Severin. God, Severin was fire and ice and challenge. She was 3 months of tension finally snapping, all those walls she'd built coming down in my living room at 3 in the morning. She was the vulnerability underneath the criticism, the want underneath the control. She was everything difficult and complicated and probably unhealthy. But she'd cried in my living room. She'd kiss me like I was oxygen. She'd admitted she wanted both of us and didn't know how to handle it. I looked at myself in the mirror, half-done makeup and messy hair, and tried to figure out what I actually wanted. Not what I'd planned. Not revenge or spite or proving a point. What did I actually genuinely want? The realization hit me like a train. I wanted both of them. Not confused. Not indecisive. Not because I couldn't choose or because I was greedy or because I didn't understand my own feelings. I was in love with both of them. With Kalista's warmth and Severin's intensity. With the way Kalista made me feel seen and the way Severin challenged me. With the softness and the fire, the safety and the chaos. I loved them both. The maid who'd kissed her boss's fiancé out of spite had somehow ended up falling for both of them, and now they both wanted me at the same time in different places, and I had no idea what to do with this information. My phone buzzed again. 7:30. A text from Jade. Hey babe, drinks tonight? I have so much drama to tell you about work. I almost laughed. If only she knew. I stared at my phone. At Severin's message asking me to choose her. At Kalista's message full of excitement and certainty. At Jade's innocent invitation to a normal night with normal drama. 7:45. I had 15 minutes to decide. I could go to Amelie's, meet Kalista, see where this thing between us led. Have that second kiss she wanted, explore the feelings she'd declared, maybe start something that felt like it had potential. I could go to the penthouse, face Severin sober and controlled, hear her proper explanation, maybe find out what was underneath all those walls she'd built. I could go to neither, text them both that this was too much, too complicated, too fast. Quit my job, block their numbers, go back to my simple life of bottle service and bad decisions that didn't involve engaged women and impossible situations. But I didn't want simple anymore. I'd thought I did when I took the maid job to add structure to my life. But simple was boring and boring didn't make you feel alive. 7:50. 10 minutes. I finished my makeup. Put on my dress. Looked at myself in the mirror and saw someone who was about to make a decision that would change everything. I picked up my phone and started typing a message. But who was I sending it to? Where was I going? What was I choosing? I stood there with my finger hovering over the send button, my heart pounding, my mind racing through every possibility and consequence. 8 o'clock arrived. And I still didn't know. Comment below who you think I should choose, or if there's even a choice to be made here. And if you want to know what I decided and how this impossibly messy situation unfolds, you better hit that subscribe button right now, because part 2 is going to change everything you think you know about this story. All I knew in that moment, standing in my bedroom at 8 p.m. with 2 women waiting for me in different places, was that sometimes revenge doesn't go according to plan. Sometimes it turns into something you never saw coming. Sometimes it turns into love. Or in my case, loves. Plural. And I had absolutely no idea what to do about it.